Okay, welcome back. Today I'm going to be giving you the introduction to the slideshow on Roman engineering. And this one's going to be pretty long. There are going to be a good number of observations to do, so I'm going to try and give you some pointers on what you should be paying attention for, what you should be looking out for in particular. So let's get going. All right, so Roman engineering. Now, the main thing... There we go. Okay, so the main thing to be thinking about when you're looking at Roman engineering is that the Roman structures serve a lot of these Roman structures, not all of them, but most of them serve some other purpose than shelter. So the purpose may be obvious, but a lot of times it has more implications than you might think of at first. So when you're thinking about the purpose, think about, this is an ancient empire that, went all across the Mediterranean. It spanned thousands of miles, covered thousands of miles of ground. How did these structures enable them to do this so effectively? Because a lot of the things we're going to be looking at are going to be essential to what their empire did. So when you're looking at that, look for new materials. There will be one new material that is absolutely essential to building not all of these structures, but a good number of them. So look for a very important new material as you go through. New forms. Now there will be two to five depending on how you count them. So be sure you get at least two new forms. One of those we're gonna hold off on talking about a bit, but the other one we will talk about quite a bit in the explanation section. But one of these forms has a number of variations, and you might be able to pick those up as well. So anywhere from 2 to 5, depending on how you count it. Now as you're making like I was saying before, as you're making the observations, think about not only the sort of immediate purpose of this structure, but how this structure would have enabled an empire as widespread as Rome to function more efficiently and ultimately to maintain that empire, because their engineering was a big part of how they were able to do it. Now, there will also be challenges that people needed to overcome when building these structures. Some of them will seem fairly simple. Some of them will seem immense. Some of them will be obvious. Some of them will be, you'll have to look a little bit more closely. But consider the challenges. Like, as you're making the observations, think about what might have been difficult to do in order to make this particular ancient structure. So you'll be looking at the roads in particular. You'll be looking at what I've called a Segovia structure. Now, Segovia is a location in Spain. I don't want to tell you what the structure is yet, because I want to see if you can figure out from the observations. Eventually, we'll come back. I'll tell you what the structure is for, but see if you can figure out what it's doing from the observations alone. Now, then we'll be looking at a couple of different bridges. One of the bridges, there are actual photos of it. This bridge still exists today. It has been repaired. A lot of times, armies after the Roman Empire would use it, and then they'd knock over a part of it, so their opposing army couldn't also use it. So it has been repaired, but it's largely the same design that the Romans used. Another one is the only place this exists in sketches, because this particular bridge is gone. It was removed actually shortly after it was built. And even if it hadn't been, it was made of wood, so there's no way it would have lasted to this day. So we just have sketches of it. Sketches made by Julius Caesar, in fact. Now, then we'll be looking at some rather famous Roman structures, the Colosseum being one in particular. We'll be looking at some other structures in the city of Rome that were built by rather impressive emperors as well. And then we'll be looking at the Pantheon, one of the most famous Roman structures. And we've already looked a bit at the Pantheon. We looked at, I believe it was a painting of it already at one point in the past, but we'll look at the Pantheon in more detail. Now, the last thing we'll be looking at is a sketch of some Roman wooden roofs made by an architect by the name of Vitruvius. Vitruvius was a Roman architect, and he designed a lot of these Roman structures, and I think that one of the sketches he makes shows the ways in which the Roman roofs were similar to Greek and Etruscan roofs, but there is one minor change. And you're going to have to look for that minor change. And it turns out this minor change actually makes a big difference. Not only in how the roof is constructed, but also in how useful the roof, how strong, how sturdy the roof actually was. So look for that when you get to that point. And that will be all the observations of Roman engineering. And from there, we'll go into so you'll do your observations first. I'll come by and explain them in a bit of detail, and then we'll have a couple of shorter explanation videos to talk about the new forms and new materials in a little bit more depth. So thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time.